Welcome to Dundregan Rewilding Centre. I'm here today with Steve Micklewright, the CEO of Trees for Life. And we're going to have a conversation about all things rewilding. Dundregan is situated north of Loch Ness and south of Glen Affric, but more about Glen Affric later. Thanks, Steve, for giving us your time today. And I'd like to begin by asking, what's the history of Trees for Life and how did it originate?
Yeah, well, Trees for Life kind of began in the 1980s with our founder, Alan Watson Featherstone. He was living in a place called Findhorn, but he used to spend a lot of his time in Glen Affric. It was like his place of solace. And Glen Affric is really special because it's got lots of the original Caledonian forest, the pine woods that should cover most of the Highlands of Scotland. And Alan kind of quickly realised that this wonderful place should be all over Scotland, particularly the Highlands, and it's missing. And he set his life objective, if you like, to restore the Caledonian forest. And then in the early 90s, the charity was formed, started to do a lot of work restoring Glen Affric, and a lot of work once we bought Dundregan in 2008 to restore the Caledonian forest here. And we're starting to see a bit of a revival now, which is great. And it's all because of one man's vision and one man's mission, if you like, to bring back something that should be all over the Highlands.
And we're so glad he did. So in terms of this project as such, what are your current activities that you're undertaking presently?
So the big thing for us right now is working at landscape scale, actually. So we can restore Dundregan, we can bring back the forest here, we can restore Glen Affric, but if we don't work at landscape scale, which is the scale that nature likes to work at, we won't see this revival, we won't see this rewilding that we're all looking for. So things that we're working on are things like our Afric Highlands initiative, where we're trying to rewild 500,000 acres over the next 30 years, but also things like the difficult stuff, like bringing back the missing species that should be here, that are part of this forest, part of this ecosystem, but haven't been here for hundreds of years, like beaver, and perhaps, if we're lucky, lynx.
So in terms of those current projects, you must have also in mind something about your long-term vision. What would that be?
Yeah, if this rewilding thing is going to work in the Highlands of Scotland, it's got to benefit people. The thing about this landscape is there's not as much wildlife in it as there should be, and there are historically low levels of people living in this landscape. Now, rewilding, although it's about nature looking after itself, requires a lot of help right now in order to make it happen. And also, if we get rewilding happening at scale, places like this rewilding centre are going to be places where people will want to come. All of that creates jobs, all of that creates livelihoods. And the only way for us to make rewilding work is for us to demonstrate that, because then it will last. So it's about people as well as this return of nature for us now.
In some respects, I think you've been very successful already in the number of people who come here. So it's obviously having some of the benefits that you've mentioned for current populations visiting, if not living here. Yeah.
I think the thing that is really inspiring about rewilding, it's a positive thing. It's about a positive future, and we live in a world that's really kind of quite negative right now and kind of pretty desolate for lots of people. But rewilding gives hope, and hope is what we need. And so people are coming here, and people are getting involved in rewilding because they want a better future for nature and for humans as well.
I hope they do indeed. Yes. Just for the sake of being clear, how would you differentiate between rewilding and habitat restoration? Okay. Are they the same as far as you're concerned, or do they have subtle differences?
Yeah, there is a difference for me. So rewilding is about being led by nature. I always say it's looking back at the past to see a different future. So what was nature doing in the past that might apply now? And it is about being led by nature. Now, as humans, we need to do stuff. We need to facilitate rewilding, but nature should be making the decisions, if you like. And that's quite different to habitat restoration or habitat management, where you're trying to do something for a very specific objective. You might be trying to protect curlews. In rewilding, what we're trying to do is restore an ecosystem, and then one day humans won't be so needed and the ecosystem can start to look after itself.
Yes, it's a kind of let's begin and see what happens, which is quite exciting, really, because it leaves things to the imagination. Now, we mentioned earlier Glen Affric specifically, and I believe you're in a rewilding partnership with Rewilding Europe. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when Trees for Life started, Alan, our founder, was adamant that there should be like a continuous forest between Loch Ness and the west coast. And what we've done is we've turned this into this 30-year initiative that we call Afric Highlands, which is about rewilding the whole landscape. So it's about peatland restoration, it's about restoring the Caledonian forest, it's about bringing back the missing species, and all these different things. And the thing that's interesting about Rewilding Europe is Afric Highlands is one of 10 other landscapes in Europe which are trying to do the same thing, working at scale, being led by nature, bringing back what we call natural processes, things that nature does just because it's nature. And I'm really proud that Afric Highlands is part of that kind of European-wide movement to restore nature, to bring back the wild to a continent that is very de-wilded.
Are you fairly optimistic about this process that you're engaged in? Are you looking forward to a sort of bright future, or have you got any reservations?
I think if we're going to do something about this nature crisis that we face and the terrible climate breakdown that we're starting to see very, very, very clearly now, and the fact that humans are really suffering, there's just like this massive well-being crisis. For me, rewilding, things like Afric Highlands, kind of does all three at once. You know, it brings back nature, it helps with climate, and it gives a better future for people. So that makes me optimistic in what are quite desperate times really these days. So we've got to have a beacon of hope, and rewilding for me is that.
Yes, well, technology doesn't have all the answers. Nature has some part to play on its own, has it not? Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve, for your time and sharing your expertise with us today. Thank you, Matteo, for being a good dog, and he's been absolutely silent all morning. So we'll be seeing you soon, and thank you very much for watching.